Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the 321 Leadership Podcast with me, Pastor Jeff. It is my joy and honor to do this with you. This is a part 2 to last episode when we started talking about over-communication and having an over-communication strategy. And I think, as I always talk about in every episode, one of the goals is to find the ceiling of your leadership and break through it to find a whole new world of leadership that maybe you never dreamt was possible. And I think this over-communication strategy is going to be next level, critical, powerful, life and leadership changing. How many words can I fit in here? It's going to be an incredible addition to your leadership tool belt and skill set, or whatever you want to use. It's just going to be really good. I've actually been putting myself through some drills to make sure I'm practicing what I'm preaching here, and it's been brutal, but very, very, very helpful. Last time, just let me give you a quick review. Last time we talked about why over-communication matters, especially in a world where the people you're leading are also living and navigating a really fast-paced life, right? They have big and full schedules. Their life is filled with noise, digital and otherwise, and really just, we could sum it up by saying the people you're leading have really full lives. And so over-communication is not just saying everything to everybody all the time. That's not what it is. And over communication is not spamming your really busy people. So we talked about some of that in the last episode. We also talked about the pain of why many people resist what we're teaching. I'm working through some obstacles. This episode and the tools within it, there is a lot of maybe natural resistance you're going to feel because it's a lot of work on the front end that makes your life and leadership so much simpler and streamlined after the fact. So a lot of work up front to have better, healthier, maybe even easier leadership after you do the hard work. And so then we talked about some fears in the last episode, why people maybe hesitate to embrace this other than the hard work. Maybe you're afraid of sounding annoying to your team. You feel like you're spamming them. That's why I said it's not spamming your team. That's not what I'm teaching you. So maybe there's some fear, maybe fear of being repetitive, but honestly, your team's going to benefit from hearing some of the messages that you have to share with them more than once anyways. Talked about that last episode, so I won't go too deep into that. And then sometimes if we're honest, sometimes our lack of communication is I'm just going to say it. It's kind of a manifestation of our pride. Sometimes in our leadership, we think if I said it once, they should have heard it perfectly and remembered it clearly, and I shouldn't have to repeat myself again. But that's probably not the best leadership attitude to have when it comes to a communication strategy. We want to have a grace-filled over-communication strategy. Now that doesn't make excuses for, underperforming leaders to always say, "Oh, I didn't hear that." That's not what I'm saying either. But go to the last episode to get those details. Today we're going to dive into how. And not in just some vague sense. I'm going to zero in on this very specific over-communication tool. So over-communication and communication strategy is a big topic. I'm just going to dive into one very simple component of it, and I call it your proactive over-communication strategy. Let me say that one more time because I know it's such a beautiful phrase that you want to hear it multiple times. We're going to talk about the proactive over-communication strategy. Now, I want to be playful with this right now because here's what nobody has ever said in history. Man, I had a great weekend. Well, what did you do that made it so great? I built an proactive over-communication strategy. This isn't going to, that term, that title doesn't sound the most exciting, but I do want to tell you, if you'll meet me on this and you'll do the work, and what this is really going to feel like is maybe you're at like a breakout session or a leadership workshop more than listening to a podcast. But I think if you do this, even though you're not gonna go brag to all your friends, hey, I had the funnest time doing a proactive over communication strategy. I do think you can have some fun with this, and it can make your leadership really, really, really enjoyable because of how much it empowers you. So All right, I'm gonna dig in. I'm gonna give you 4 steps to build this. There are actually 5 steps I'm gonna give you 5 steps to build your over communication strategy. Playing off of last week's episode, I'm not gonna give you any more context on over communication. So first thing what you need to do is you need to build your communication roster. Okay, so who needs to hear from you and when? So this is really simple but really powerful step. Everyone who will be part of this communication strategy, they're part of your team and you're part of their team. So I want you to build your roster. Everybody in this strategy is part of your team. You're part of their team. And you don't always lead them in the same way, but you all share the same mission. Everybody who's going to be part of this strategy. And what do we know from last episode? When communication gets unclear, alignment within the team can break down and morale can even diminish within that. And so you really, really, really need to know who's on your team. I know that might sound super simple, like of course I know who's on my team, but I promise you doing this part of the exercise is going to benefit you more than skipping it. So I think you know who's on your team, and often I find people know within their head who's on their team, but I want you to see this like mapped out in a visual way with everybody who's on your team. Okay, and why do I say everybody? Well, I bet there is somebody who is on the fringe of your team who is either frustrated or would just be more grateful if they got more regular and more clear communication from you more often. And then there's probably people who you definitely have on your team that they're close to you. There's people who maybe they're your direct reports. Maybe you're their direct report. There's somebody on your inner circle who's also going to appreciate having more clear and consistent communication. So I want you to map out everybody who's on your team, and I'm going to actually give you 13 total questions to kind of help you do this. And it's going to be in your leader guide, so don't be overwhelmed with 13 questions. But I really want you to map out the most complete roster you can. So 13 questions. Number 1, who reports to me? Number 2, who do I report to? These first 2 are really natural, but the rest of them might help make a better roster. So the question number 3, this is really going to help you. Not just who do I report to and who reports to me, but who is impacted by the decisions that I make or the area that I lead. For example, everything I do impacts my usher team. My usher team at my church, they have to, their role is to move my pulpit at the right time in the service, or if I have a prop or something, they're the ones who are going to bring the prop to me during my service. And then there's some weeks where I don't have any responsibility for them, so I let them run on autopilot. Then there's other weeks where I have some new thing, and I need to get, honestly, I'm confessing, I need to get better at communicating with them because they're impacted by my decisions for our Sunday service. All right, number 4, who do I communicate with regularly? Okay, there might be somebody who you chat with often, but maybe you don't intentionally communicate with. So make sure the people you just talk to on a regular basis are part of this roster. And then question number 5, who should I be communicating with regularly? So my usher team was kind of an example. Some of these questions have overlap, but that's intentional. Is there somebody I communicate with regularly? Is there somebody I should be communicating with more regularly? For example, my wife is also my kids ministry director. So it's really easy for me to, oddly enough, because she's the person I'm closest to in this world, it's really easy for me to not communicate more regularly with her because I feel like I talk to her all the time. And so then we actually, in a roundabout way, sometimes have less quality work communication. And if you want to talk about that in greater detail, we can go deeper into that a different day. But I just want to show you that she's somebody I should be communicating with more regularly than I am. See, I'm working on this with you. I'm going to rapid fire the next several questions at you. We're at question number 6. Who might I be under communicating with? Number 7, who might I unintentionally be disrespecting by not keeping them in the loop? Number 8, who has been faithfully affected by my decisions, but not thoughtfully included in communication? I know there's some overlap, but I want to give you different points of view to think about this. Number 8, who do I want to hear from more consistently? Who do you want to hear from more consistently? One more time. Who do you want to hear from more consistently? Again, if you're taking notes, don't freak out. I will have all these questions in your leader guide. All right. Who is often stuck waiting for me for clarity before they can move forward? or lead? Who is often stuck waiting for me to add clarity? Number 11, who might be leading sideways or downwards, but needs an echo from my voice with confidence? In other words, who would benefit from you giving them a boost of confidence? Who tends to get updates secondhand, but should hear them first time around? That's number 12. Who tends to get updates secondhand, but should be in the first round of communication? And 13, final one. I know there's a lot of them. Just read through them slow. I told you I'm going to make you work really hard in this one. Who is carrying weight without relational connection or visibility they need from me? Who's maybe getting neglected? Who's maybe getting neglected? Okay, really, really important. Take your time to look at these. You can pause this and review these in your leader guide. I'm going to give you a prompt to pause later in the episode to also review this. And right now I want to clarify, this is about who you're going to talk to. Not what you're going to say to them, not how often, but just looking at different vantage points on different people who benefit from hearing your voice. Whether you report to them, whether they report to you, whether you lead side by side. I just want you to have a good visual. However you do this, get a blackboard, get a whiteboard, get a piece of paper, get a tablet and an Apple Pencil or whatever you do. But really map this out in the most literal sense. I want to just emphasize the point of this is to move from only reactive or primarily reactive communication to start building proactive and predictable communication. I know this one's a lot of work, but pause this and take maybe about 5 or 10 minutes and make this communication roster. Think relationally, cross-functionally, think ahead, who needs clarity, go through these 13 questions, and I'm going to bite my tongue so I don't repeat all of them. All right, are you guys ready for step 2? Step 2 is creating your tiered leadership communication roster. So you're going to take the roster you have, and now you're going to start adding tiers to it. So what I mean by that is you looked at who, now you're going to look at how to communicate with them. Not what, but how. How do you communicate with them? Because you don't communicate with everybody in the same way. So here's what happens sometimes when we don't look at let's say it this way. This step helps you honor the role of the people that you communicate with. And when we don't understand how to honor the role of the people we communicate with, what we can find ourselves accidentally doing is over-explaining to people who don't need it, which slows them down and wastes your time, and then under-communicate with key people who would really benefit from more communication. And maybe they're confused or frustrated because of lack of communication. So this is where you're going to build out those tiers. I talked about this a little bit in the last episode. And so this is actually a really good thing. This makes it feel like a lot of work because you have to acknowledge, and sometimes title doesn't, like maybe somebody is a president or a executive director and then someone else is a team leader. Just because they're higher ranking doesn't mean they need more communication for you. It's really about their interaction with you. Think about that for a second till it makes sense. And so this is going to help build trust and clarity with those people. So you communicate smarter rather than just over communicating for over communicating's sake. So here's the 3 tiers that you're going to start filtering through. Tier 1 are your collaborators. They're your direct reports, whether you report to them or they report to you. And by the way, feel free to make your own strategy to report up. You don't just need to make your own strategy to report to those who report to you. You can also make your strategy to report to your boss and tell your boss that, like, hey, I made this strategy so I can communicate with you better and share with them. Tell them what you did. They would love that. What leader would not be just so honored that you took the effort to do this role for them and with them? So like these people, they're collaborators. They're high trust. Maybe that they get the opportunity to speak into your projects. Maybe you speak into their projects. Maybe you give each other feedback, or whatever. You know what collaboration is. There's different ways to do it. And maybe they benefit from weekly or monthly one-on-ones rather than only meeting in a group. There's lots of things to do here. Right now, I just want you to figure out like who feels more like a collaborator than a not collaborator. Just honest moment for me. Collaborators are probably where I'm the weakest. because it's so easy for me to I always have so many projects and so little time that I'm always just want to do my project, and I feel really confident on my own work. And so then I move forward. And I'm honestly working on becoming more collaborative in my work, even at the top leadership level of my organization. So think collaboration, and then think also, should I be collaborating? Remember, some of these things aren't just what you're doing. Some of them are like, should I be doing this? So if there's someone on your roster who feels like you should collaborate more, or they should collaborate with you more, and then talk to them about this, or even invite them to watch this episode and say, hey, let's figure out how to do this. Okay, and they're the people who not only do you collaborate with, but they probably get behind the scenes inside scoop before stuff happens and help dictate that. So number one, collaborators, before I over-explain it. Number two, then they're the loopers, okay? They have their own space. They have more trust. They don't need your feedback. You don't need their feedback. But you have to report to one another, whichever direction it goes, it doesn't matter. But to just say, hey, boss, I've worked on this project. I just wanted to update you. I don't need your feedback on it, but I want to update you that the project's coming along, or it's almost done, or hey, I finished this. I just want to let you know I finished it. Or maybe you're the boss and you're working on a project that involves your team. It says, hey guys, I got step 1 done, which that teed it up for you to take step 2 of the project. And so, hey, I just want to let you guys know. And I can't tell you how often this can happen, where it's like somebody got step 1 done, but never communicated, never looped in the rest of the team. And they're like, oh, well, we were ready for step 2 a long time ago. If you would have been more organized and looped us in, right? So again, I don't want to over-explain it. This can be text messages, voice memos, emails. It doesn't have to always be a meeting. Maybe, because remember, collaboration is going to be more in person, more personal, more frequent. Looping can be quick and easy. It doesn't have to be just crazy, intense, or time-consuming, but keep them in the loop. They're loopers. We could go either direction. You loop them in, they loop you in. And then number 3, the rock and rollers. The rock and rollers, and those are the people that you're in the organization together, and somebody maybe they answer to you in your leadership or something, but they don't need babysat. They don't need, not that anybody should need babysat, but they don't need a lot of input from you. In fact, they don't need to loop you in very often. And they can just rock and roll. You still want to have them on your communication roster, because what they probably need from you the most is encouragement and affirmation. When somebody's a rock and roller, they're very independent. They're probably really high performing, and your lanes just don't cross a whole lot. So they're easy to ignore or forget about. And the reality is if they're a high performer and they're a rock and roller just who has a lot of independence, they probably need a lot more encouragement to continue in that level and capacity. So you want to encourage everybody, whether they're your collaborators, your loopers, but just take extra care that if you don't communicate a lot with your rock and rollers, they might not rock and roll as long as they would if you communicate with them regularly. How do you lead them well? You're going to celebrate them publicly. So some of your communication to your rock and rollers isn't just going to be to them. It's going to be about them to others. Again, this applies to your collaborators and your loopers, but I just want to emphasize this for your rock and rollers. You still can coach them and help them, press in and move along in their leadership. Still give them vision reminders. If they're a rock and roller, maybe they deserve an inside scoop on stuff depending on your relationship with them. But this is the rock and roller, and rock and rollers rock and roll, but you help them have longevity by communicating well with them. Just take a moment to breathe together, and then look at we'll start our assignment, and you can pause it and do this while you're taking that breather. I want you to look at your roster from step 1. I want you to just kind of think through I feel like my answers have been a little abstract, but I don't want to be too specific because your leadership interactions are going to be very different than mine. So I want you to, the best of your ability, just look at everybody on your roster and maybe even rewrite or type your roster list if that helps. Just whatever you need to do to label them so you know who's who. And then we're going to move on to step 3, but make sure you don't rush this. Make sure you take time to have the proper label. All right. Pause, take some time to do this if you haven't already, and then we will go to step 3. let's go to step 3, establish your communication cadence. This is where it moves from reactive to proactive communication. When you have a predictable pattern or cadence of communicating with these people based on what tier they are. They're going to not all communicate the same way with you. So for example, you don't share every problem with every person, or maybe certain news goes to an inner circle before it goes to the whole circle, right? And so what is the cadence of how often you need to talk to everybody? Maybe you have a group, maybe your collaborators function in a group. So maybe the collaborators get a weekly one-on-one, and maybe your loopers get a monthly report, or you give them a monthly report, and then maybe your rock and rollers are a quarterly check-in, or quarterly encouragement, and then maybe there's a certain communication where all 3-tiered people, they get a weekly or monthly update from you that just says, hey, I love you guys, I'm thinking about you, here's some wins for our team. So I want you to start taking this next step, and then I want you to look at all 3 tiers, looking at your roster, and figure out how often do collaborators, how often do loopers, and then how often do rock and rollers need to hear from me. And by the way, part of it that I haven't talked about yet is not just hearing from you, but also you ask feedback from them. That can be part of your communication strategy. And so what we're doing with this, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritty of what yet. We're just looking at how often. But the goal is not just to communicate more, it's to communicate on purpose, okay? What you're going to do is you're starting to build consistency with your people. You're going to create a predictable pattern of speaking to them on a regular basis. And there's lots of things. I'm just going to give you a list of different things you can do in your regular communications. You can celebrate wins. You can reinforce values. You can cast vision. You can share updates. You can ask for input. You can just speak life into them. You can honor them among their peers. You can offer a leadership. You can offer training. You can just give a nice note of encouragement. You can remind them to check their schedule. You can pick on them for a group performance issue that you need to see increased. You gotta be careful with those to do it appropriately. You can send an event or a calendar. You can promote a reminder of a big event that they've already heard of, but you want to make sure that they get an invite from you. And just a simple check-in. This is why it's a lot of work. You got to figure out what are the things, what are the types of things that they should hear from you, how often. So this is kind of a 2-part step. How often should they hear from you? And then now we're going to start to say what kinds of things, rather than the specific things, what kinds of things do you want to communicate to them? This is so helpful, even though it is a ridiculous amount of work. It's a mouthful just to even try to communicate the lessons to you, but this is what you need to do. You need to pause and think, I'm going to have proactive, predictable, intentional communication. Make it real, make it repeatable. And what I want you to do is I want you to feel a lot of freedom here. You're not building a strategy for the rest of your life, okay? You're not building a strategy for the rest of your career. Your first thing you do, you're going to build this, and then it's going to be a rough draft. You're going to use it, and then as you get better at it, it will evolve over time. I promise you it will. I have a weekly staff meeting with my very small staff, and for about 6-8 months, we had one meeting format. I felt like our team kind of grew out of that format, and so we recently changed the format of our meeting and the things that we cover in that meeting. And so that's going to happen to you. Your communication strategy will evolve over time. In fact, I encourage you to, I know it's a lot of work, but I encourage you to review this every 6 months, every year, and probably revisit this episode and redo this exercise. So I hope that helps. So step 3, we're going to pause again. I want you to look at your roster. I want you to look at your tiers. I want you to establish your cadence. What types of things and how often do you need to communicate those things with each tier? All right, guys, are you ready for step 4? Let's keep on going. Step 4 is called apply the filter. This is more of the ongoing step. You're going to do this as it sounds. You're going to do this in an ongoing manner. So what you've done now is you created a communication routine, right? You created a proactive strategy. What does that mean to be proactive? It means that you're just going to habitually do it and get in front of things rather than reacting to things, right? And so, you have an event or activity for your team. 6 months pass, you have another activity, and in between there you have one training, and then somewhere in there you have a special meeting, and it's just you only communicate in reaction to what's going on. But now you're proactive, whether it's a monthly thing or a weekly thing or whatever it is. Now you have a filter. So if it doesn't fall in to your already pre-planned communication, now it's extracurricular communication, right? This is really helpful because what it allows you to do is it allows you to have more organic and relational communication with your leaders in between the proactive communication. Again, I don't want to be too negative about it, but it's like some people, if we have bad communication habits, there's some people who maybe every time you call them, that was weird doing that with my Beats on, but when somebody calls, they're like, oh no, what's wrong with my team? And maybe rightfully so, because maybe the team only hears when there's a problem to solve. And instead now it's like, hey, they know that you don't just call when there's a problem. It does all kinds of things so that it frees you up to have more meaningful one-on-one communication with your team, rather than like this whiplash. I never know what I'm going to get when I'm with you. Right? I never know what I'm going to get when I'm with you. And so now you can have a filter to say like, okay, I don't need to give each person this training whenever I randomly bump into them because I struggled to get everybody together for this meeting. It's like, nope, you're predictable. And so the training talk will be in the email, or will be in the podcast episode that they send you, or it will be, contained within that meeting. And they don't have to be stressed out like, oh no, they're coming. This training came out of nowhere, and I'm going to forget it, and I don't have a notebook, so not in learning mode. See what I mean? I don't know how much I want to over-explain this, but I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, drop a note in the comments so I can explain it in more detail. The other thing this does is when you apply the filter, it makes you more organized. Any leaders out there who struggle to be organized, you're going to have to start taking notes because you're going to build a communication habit, right? You're going to probably start to get better at, remember the 3-legged stool of your leadership? Go to episode 1 of this podcast, and it's some of my favorite content I've ever made, the administrative leadership, not just administration, but administrative leadership. And so this is going to force you to maybe sit down for 30 minutes a week or a couple hours a month and just look at your team and work on it instead of in it, because now you have to be organized enough to know what to communicate to who, how often, and you're leading yourself better so you can lead them better. This is what applying the filter does. What I want to encourage you to do is continue to build up this is kind of tricky, and I'm sorry if I'm not being clear on this, but what you want to do is you establish your cadence of like who and what kind of communication. That kind of spills into the filter a little bit, right? So it's like when you're thinking of what kind of communication you're going to say to which parts of your team, then that kind of helps you make the filter, if that makes sense. And so what I would suggest is that you have like maybe 3 to 5 communication categories that you want to include in your regular communication patterns. So like you want to maybe have wins to celebrate, or key reminders, or vision or value, or encouragement, or events, right? Those are just 5 random ones I'm just listing for you, not saying that's the 5 you need to use. That kind of becomes a filter. Like, okay, I want to save my wins for my upcoming communication with my team instead of just being this random win communicator, if that's part of your strategy. your strategy could be to just impulsively share wins. That can be your strategy. But I just wanted to give that as an example on what the filter is kind of like. All right, step 5 is you're just going to roll it out. So do the work. This is going to be a few hours of work probably. I've been working on doing this exercise myself, and it's taken me a couple hours over a couple of days to do it, and I'm still working on it. Just because I need to update mine. And so do it and then share the plan. Start by telling everybody who's on your team, hey, I did this exercise. I encourage you to watch this podcast. I just want you to know I consider you a collaborator, and I want to make sure that we have a good rhythm of collaboration. Hey, you're a rock and roller. I just like to hear updates from you, or update you, and let's make sure we build a good pattern of that. You're a looper. Hey, I want to know this stuff on a regular basis. Go and communicate that with them. And then step 2 of rolling it out is start small, but start now. Okay. One of my favorite leadership quotes from another leader is a good plan now is better than a perfect plan later or never. Right. So maybe you just start with your collaborators, or you don't have a lot of collaborators. So maybe you just start with your loopers, right? Or maybe you just start with all of them. Say, hey, guys, I'm building this. But I'm struggling on how to, I'm still working on the rest of the strategy. So I'm just going to send all of you guys this stuff for now. And what does that do? It doesn't contradict what I said earlier, where I said, like, not everybody needs to hear everything all the time. It lets you get started with a strategy that over time you can start to feel like, okay, the collaborators need this information and the loopers need this, and tell them that. Just communicate with them. Hey, I'm going to get better at separating who gets what, so you don't everybody hear everything. But just to build the habit, I'm going to start by giving everybody everything for a period of time, and name that period of time. For the next 6 months, I'm just going to build a habit of communicating to everybody, and then I'm going to start breaking it up as I figure out how to do it. But part 2 of this is rolling it out. Is number 1 is share the plan. Number 2 is start small, but start now. Number 3 is you have to stick with it for at least 6 weeks. If it's weekly, if it's every other week, but then if it's just monthly, you need to do this for 6 months. You need to give yourself a challenge that you're going to stick with this, because it's not helpful and it's a lot of work to communicate once and it doesn't become predictable. Because I want you to understand, the goal is to bless your team with better communication, but honestly, it's actually to make your leadership simplified. It really does. This makes your leadership streamlined and simplified, because your brain is going to start training itself on an orderly pattern of communication. I really like celebration and wins as part of ongoing communication. If you say, I'm going to send a weekly or a monthly win list, your brain is going to get better at finding and retaining wins. Okay. If you just need to get better at saying, hey team, here's what's coming down the pipeline over the next 6 weeks. And, every 2 weeks you send a 6-week calendar. Your brain is, and maybe you struggle with that. Your brain is just going to start getting better at, sitting down and looking at what's coming up and figuring out how to put that together in an orderly fashion for your team and your life. And you're a great leader. And part of being a great leader is you have a lot of stressful things you have to manage. And so when you stick with this, it makes your brain and I would say your heart and soul just more effective at managing the things that you want to be good at. So you got to stick with it. I hope it didn't sound too preachy there, but I just love you guys so much and I want to see you succeed. And this is, as I've said, this is hard stuff. This is really hard stuff, but that's it. That's your proactive communication strategy. And it's going to be a powerful tool that I believe will change your life. Start small, start now. Here's what I want to leave you with. One of my favorite quotes, I say it all the time. Leadership is taking people someplace you're already going. I can't think of a better way to make it easier for them to go to this amazing place they want to go with you than having proactive communication that's predictable and loving and kind, that encourages them, that informs them, that lets them know what's going on and lets them know what you expect of them. And they want to do a good job for you. Here's the reality. The people who you are leading, they want you to be impressed. They want you to be happy. They want you to be pleased. So let them know that you are. When you do this, you're not just going to have a communication strategy, you're going to build a culture of joyful serving on a team that loves you. So I love you too. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm going to just call it good for now. 2-parter, complete, mission accomplished. Let's go. See you next time, leaders.